first off, let's cover the legal side of things. So you're going to need a front light and a rear light on your bike if you're cycling between sunset and sunrise. It's about sunset now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the specifics are covered in something called the Road Vehicle Lighting Regulations, or RVLR.
They sound fun.
They are. We're not going to go into those specifics here, you'll be glad to know. And to be honest, if you read around the subject, you'll see that the legal side of things is actually a little bit of a mess. But the basics are that your main lights need to be fixed to your bike, and you need a white one at the front and a red one at the rear.
It's funny that.
And yes, flashing ones are okay since 2005 when the rules were amended.
Are they actually?
They are actually.
I didn't actually know that. Well, there is your baseline, a red one and a white one, but you knew that already. So let's look into some specifics. And one of the first things you'll probably ask is, how bright should they be?
Now, if you're my age, then you'll remember when, back in the bad old days, when LED bike lights were rubbish. Back in the 1990s, the only LED lights you could get were weak blinky things, and the front ones had green LEDs in because white LEDs were so bad. Jump forward 25 years and you can light up anything with LEDs, from your microwave to a football stadium, and all bike lights are LED these days because they're just so good. Now, the technology is still improving, and every year it seems they get brighter. Generally, you'll see light power measured in lumens. So Cat Eye's road range used to top out at the Volt 1200 that we reviewed in 2013. It won't surprise you to learn that that's a light rated at 1200 lumens. And then that became the Volt 1300. And then they released the Volt 1600 and, then the Volt 1700, which we're on now. And, you get the picture.
Absolutely. That might sound like an arms race, but it's not really that. It's just that each year you can make a light brighter for about the same spec and about the same price. That doesn't mean that you need to go out and spend all of your cash on the brightest bike light that you can find. You'll see lights that are rated to like 8,000 lumens and more. And they're great for tearing down technical trails on your mountain bike in the dead of night, but they're definitely going to be overkill for like your urban commute, if that's all that you need a light for.
Okay, to give you an idea of what you can expect, we're out here in the dark and the cold.
It's so cold.
To ride up and down, we've got Cat Eye's range of amp lights from the amp 100 all the way up to the amp 1100.
Yeah, and what we're going to do is we're going to take those lights, we're going to run up and down this road several times, same settings each time on the camera, give you an idea of how bright each one is. We're also going to throw in a set of dipped car headlights to give you a comparison between bike lights and car lights too.
Good, let's go. Okay, we're starting off with the smallest light, the amp 100, with 100 lumens of output. You can ride on unlit lanes with a light like this with a bit of care, but it's better as a light for about town. You can see that compared to the car headlights, it's not very bright, but it will get you seen. Lights like this are also useful as a secondary light that you can fit to your bars or also to your helmet. A helmet mounted light is really useful for spotting hazards on corners, especially if you're riding off-road.
Now, moving up a notch, the amp 200 shares the same design but uses a more powerful LED behind that Opticube lens at the front. At 200 lumens, you're getting a decent beam for riding on dark lanes, although because this is a very compact light, the battery won't last all that long on full beam. More on that later.
Now, the amp 500 sits in the middle of the range, and it's a good all-rounder. It's bright enough that you won't need to use the full beam around town, which gives you a longer run time. And there's a daytime hyper-constant mode on this, and the more powerful lights, that's good for daytime visibility. Again, more on that later.
Now we come on to the amp 800. When you're getting up to this kind of output, you're into lights that can cope with riding at speed at night. You won't always need the 800 lumen top mode, so the amp 800 has a neat double-click function that moves you in and out of full beam, useful for giving yourself more illumination when you hit a descent.
And then finally, the amp 1100. Now, this light's the top of the amp range, and 1100 lumens is probably all the light you'd ever need for riding on the road. You can see that it's not all that far off a car headlight in terms of its output, and if you compare it to the amp 100 at the other end of the range, you can see how much more light you're getting.
At the back, it's the same story. You can get lights that are more or less powerful, depending on your needs. Yeah, like that. Using these Cat Eye Viz lights as an example, we have 4 with outputs from 100 to 450 lumens in the highest intensity flashing modes. On constant beam, the output is lower, but you'll get 5 hours out of this battery in here.
Of course, your rear light is about being seen, not seeing where you're going. So a really bright light like this Viz 450 will get you seen from a long way away. So it's a great option if any of your after dark riding is on busier or faster roads. Of course, if you're riding with mates, then having a super bright flashing light like this can be really antisocial. So these lights also feature a lower power group ride mode to keep your riding buddies happy. And if you regularly ride after dark with other riders, that's definitely something to look out for.
So that's brightness covered off, but brightness isn't the only thing that you'll want to think about when you're buying a new light. Let's consider battery life next.
Yeah, so lights will vary a lot in terms of how long they last, and you'll need to consider that when you're buying one. If your commute is short and that's the only riding you do after dark, then it's probably not going to be an issue for you. But if you have a longer commute on unlit roads, where you need a higher beam, for example, or you like going out after dark and doing longer rides, then you'll want to make sure there's enough capacity to get around your ride, because feeling your way home in the dark with a dead front light is no fun at all, and we've all been there. So features like a battery indicator can help here. So some lights have a small LED display on the top, others like these cat eyes use a colour-coded LED in the button to let you know what the state of the battery is.
So two main things are going to affect your battery life: how bright the beam is and how big the battery is. Take for example, these two lights. We have the AMP 500 that Dave has there and the AMP 1100 which I have here. Both of them will last for about an hour and a half on maximum, but obviously that's loads more light from the 1100. That's because it has at least double the battery capacity in this bigger body. On a comparable brightness setting to the 500, it will run for 4 hours. So if you're planning to be out for longer, it's obviously a better bet. You can use the lower settings for most of your riding and ramp it up for faster descents or tricky technical bits if you're off-road.
Now at the back, the thing that affects the battery life most is the modes. Take this top of the range Viz 450 light, it'll go for 5 hours on steady mode, so always on. But in the daytime hyper flash mode, that extends to 14 hours. And for the Viz 150 that you've got, in standard flashing mode, you get 150 hours out of one charge. Now, this light has a neat battery autosave feature as well, where it drops down to flashing when the battery's getting low, so you're very unlikely to end a ride without a rear light, which is a good thing.
Yes, I'd quite like to do that. Now, there are two main ways that you'll attach a light to your bike. Some lights, like the more affordable AMP lights here, use a rubber strap. That's super simple to take on and off, so it's good to have about town when you're leaving your bike locked up and you'd rather you still had your lights when you came back. All of these Viz rear lights use a rubber strap too that allows the light to be run vertically or horizontally.
Now these bigger front lights like the AMP 1100 use a flex type mount that fastens onto the bars, and it's a little bit more solid than the rubber strap, but it's still easy to get the light on and off. It's worth thinking about what you're mounting your light to as well. So round handlebars and seat posts work with pretty much anything, but if you have an aero bike like you do, you'll struggle with some mounts. I'm sure you found that.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you can, check before you buy. So the snap system on the rear mount here is designed to work with aero and camtail seat posts as well as round ones, and this flex type bracket is pretty versatile too. Cat Eye also do a range of mounts to fit your light to something else, like a pannier or a rack, for example, or your saddle. Check that you can get a mount for the light you want that will work for you.
My favourite bit is that those unscrew at the bottom and you can fit a little GoPro mount. So if you want to mount it under your stem or under your computer, you can do that as well.
Excellent. So how much light a front light chucks out onto the road, or how far away you can see a rear light, is really important, but it's not the only consideration. Side visibility is also important, especially in urban areas when you're joining traffic from a side road, for example. On front lights, look for side ports like this that allow the light to be seen from the side, and at the rear, look for a light that can be easily seen from the side. Some lights use LEDs set at an angle for that, and others, like these Viz lights, have a translucent body that lights up to make them stand out from the side. That gives this light a 300-degree viewing angle, Cat Eye says.
Now, mostly you'll probably want to use your light at night, but increasingly riders are looking for lights that also have a mode that will get them seen in the daytime too. For a front light, that's usually either a flashing mode or increasingly a mode that mixes a constant beam with a bright flash for maximum visibility. Now, Cat Eye calls this daytime hyper constant at the front and daytime hyper flash at the rear, but other manufacturers use like different terms. It's worth looking out for because it's very useful, especially on faster roads, I have to say.
Yeah.
Now, Cat Eye reckons from its own testing that this Viz 450 can be seen from 2 kilometers away, and I can confirm that it can be seen from this distance. Yeah.
So there you go, that's our brief look at all the things you need to consider when you're buying a front or a rear light. Thanks to Cat Eye for giving us a bunch of lights to show you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want one top tip, I always go one brighter than I think I need, because I can always run the light at a lower setting to get extra battery life.
Absolutely right. If you've got any questions about front or rear lights, ask them in the comments below. We'll try and answer them for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos from us. Cheers for watching.